And we went in August a couple times, and all you do is you walk from, if you're out and about at all, you go from one hotel, you walk 30 seconds as fast as you can to get into the other casino hotel where it's air conditioned.
Right. Well, it was definitely a scorcher, but
Yep.
we had fun, so that's what matters, right?
Yep. Oh, is
We
that what
just
you got back? Is that why you went back early? Was for that trip?
well, kind of. I had actually, yeah, I guess it was because I had a seminar down there, so um, like a Botox and fillers course, so that was kind of cool.
Ah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, well, this is cool. Well, Travis, thanks for taking some time to chat on here, and we're gonna today discover and talk a little bit about direct mail and find out if it's dead for dental practices, and kind of talk about digital marketing a little bit. So, if you wouldn't mind, just for people who might be popping in here in a minute,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you got to be the direct mail king that you are.
Well, it goes back quite a few years. I'll spare you all the details in exacting detail, but the Reader's Digest version is my dad owned a business. He had a retail supply company, so wholesale distribution company that sold everything they needed to run their store. So not their merchandise, but all the stuff they need to run the store: point of sales, computer systems, racking, shelving, the bags you put the clothes in when they check out, right? So everything that you would need to actually run the store, not necessarily sell at the store. So anyway, he started that business, and he used what we now call 3D mail. It was called, well, they didn't really have a name back in 1994ish or so when he started it, but he started using what we now call 3D mail in that business. So he sent out, for example, the very famous Gary Halbert dollar bill letter. So if you're in the direct mail world, you've very likely seen the Gary Halbert dollar bill letter. So we sent out real dollar bills. We sent out fake dollar bills. We sent out foreign currency, right? And then that morphed into sending boomerangs to get customers to come back. And it morphed into sending probably the most, I don't want to say extravagant one. It wasn't all that extravagant, but one of the first like real big pieces we sent where it was a magic 8 ball because we were going to help them clear up their fortune, clear up their future by inviting them to a boot camp to learn how to better run their stores. So I mean, so for magic 8 balls to dollar bills, let's fast forward to about 2005. My dad had grown this business, and he'd done a lot of other stuff, but in part it had been because of this what we now call 3D mail stuff. And so I'm coming to work for him out of college, and we go to a mastermind group, and this is with uh, Bill Glazer, who I know you know, Dr. Williams, um, but Dan Kennedy's former business partner. And people had been asking us for years and years and years, how did where do you go find these things? How do you get inspiration? What are you doing? Because by this time we had sent dozens of different things beyond just real money, fake money, boomerangs. We had sent um, bank bags in the mail. We had sent pill bottles in the mail because we were going to cure their headaches.
But I think so. I heard you talking about you're working with your dad, and then you'd met Bill Glazer at a
Mm-hmm.
conference, and then I think I lost you. So if you wouldn't mind picking it up from there, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, so we had always used these 3D mail things to grow that business. And we had, by this time we had gained a bit of a reputation within this circle, which we now call the magnetic marketing, no BS, which is where I met you, Doc. And, that's, we did parts of it. People started asking us about that and saying, where are you getting this stuff? Where are you going? And we would tell them, hey, we just go to the dollar store for the most part and go and find inspiration, right? Walk up and down the aisles and then say, hey, you got 1,000 of these or 1,500 or 10,000 for one thing that we did. Um, but then we started thinking, okay, we've got this core business. It's a distribution wholesale company. We've got a big warehouse, and we buy well because we have connections all over the country, all over the world to buy stuff, right? And so we just kind of put into motion what we would normally do if we wanted to find a new product to sell for the existing company. And so we started getting in and we started buying these products in bulk, the pill bottles and the boomerangs and fake money and foreign currency. And we said, well, let's just buy this well, let's stock it, and then we'll ship it out to these people when they need it, right? Because the tough thing was the inconsistency of it within our world, right? You'd have to go to a dollar store and hope that they had it, things like that. And so that was the very beginning of this business, where we, basically just kind of bolted on this side business onto an existing wholesale distribution business. Now here we are. We started that business in 2008. Here we are 12, 13 years later. We're now a full service direct mail company, everything from postcards to traditional sales letters to newsletters. And then, of course, our 3D mail stuff, right, which is what we really focus on for the most part. But that's kind of our differentiator. And, like I said, that was the quick version of what we could have talked about for probably 30 minutes if we wanted.
Yeah, well, that's great, and certainly you guys have so many cool ideas, and I remember maybe 6 or so years ago hearing this idea of lumpy mail, and, or 3D mail, and I was interested in, what the heck people were talking about, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I remember like talking to my team at work, being like, "Hey guys, we're gonna send some lumpy mail," and they were just dying laughing, like lumpy mail. What kind of a name is that? But it's so cool because it stands out, and so I wanted to see kind of your perspective. Obviously, you're a direct mail guy, but you're also a young progressive guy too, who's at least somewhat tech savvy. I think you're probably a pretty tech savvy guy, but a lot of people. I mean, I was having a conversation with one of our vendors the other day about this software tool we're using in the office, and I was kind of saying, yeah, this is really great. I wish it had this direct mail component for something we were using to send birthday cards. And he's like, well, most people like, digital communication now. And so we just have found that there's not really, demand for that. And, me being somewhat biased is thinking, well, I don't know if you really have the facts and figures to know if there's demand for that or not. But,
Yep.
Tell us kind of your perspective if direct mail is dying, if digital's taking over, or if direct mail is doing better than digital. What's your experience and results looking like right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the deal. There are no big broad brushes you can make for or against direct mail or digital social media, all that kind of stuff right now, right? There are lots of reasons why you can and should be using direct mail as part of your total marketing toolbox, right? So I sell direct mail, right? Film it, we write copy, we create campaigns for people, but I also use internet, right? I do things like this. Here I am. What this is Clubhouse, as we discussed, Tyler, before we jumped on and started recording, might be the newest of the social media platforms, right? And so here I am doing that. So the demise of direct mail, though, is very exaggerated, right? So you'll hear things like the post office sends way less mail than they did 10 years ago. And while that's technically correct, the difference is not people are sending less marketing mail, right? We're still sending more now than any time before. The height was at 2006. It dipped for about 3 to 4 years, and then we actually surpassed 2006 numbers around 2016, 2017 in terms of number of marketing materials sent. So when you hear things like no one uses direct mail anymore, and they give you the post office sends 20% less mail than it did 15 years ago. While yes, that's technically true, but it's the big reason for that is we don't send invoice reminders anymore. We don't send payments anymore via mail, right? I mean, I remember growing up, my mom would bring a stack of they would write the checks and send out individual, checks for every bill that month. Well, most people now are on some or all of that's been being taken care of online, right? So that's the first big thing is when you hear people say no one uses direct mail anymore, look at the numbers. Well, you're not really comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges because we've just taken transactional mail just completely off the map, right? So that's the first big thing. Secondly, a couple of different things that it does. First off, there are so many people that just are turned off and have tuned out email to a lesser degree, but still needs to be taken into account, text messaging, things like that. So, with open rates and email going down, so you might say, oh, I've got a great customer list, a great patient list in your case. I can just email my clients or email my patients. Well, if you've been keeping track, you've seen your open rate go down, you've seen your click-through rates go down, you've probably seen any metric that you cover has been going down because we've just become overwhelmed with it. And it goes that way for all kinds of stuff. So direct mail is another touch point in that client relationship. And then another big thing that I'll tell you about direct mail versus social or online or anything like that. And this is what our mentor Dan Kennedy, he calls this circumventing search. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I'm a new mom in a new neighborhood. I've moved too far away from my previous dentist to have to still be viable for me. I moved 100 miles away. I moved across country. I moved across the state, whatever it is. And now here we are. We've moved in. We've got to start thinking about all this other stuff. Maybe we've been in the house 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. And then we've got to start thinking about, okay, what are we going to do for a doctor? What are you going to do for a dentist? We might start asking people about it, right? We might start looking online. Well, now let's say before that person does all the searching, we can kind of time that introduction to that mom, for example, and send them a direct mail piece, because one of the things that we can do is get a list of people who have just bought or moved home. So either they bought a home or they've moved. Well, that's a great indicator for really a whole host of businesses, but especially people in the healthcare industry and specifically dentists. It's something like 60% of people change their dentist when they move, right? So now if we know a list of 60% of the people have moved, and 100% of the people that have moved, 60% of them are going to be in the business or in the market for a new family DDS. Well, we can show up before they even start thinking about that, right? And so there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you want to still use direct mail, but those are the big three that I see right now.
Well, and I like your point of, the new mover example, because, don't you think a lot of this is really sending the message to where there's fertile ground? For someone to just say, hey, all the marketing money is in Instagram or Facebook advertising, it can be a very good source, but, we've had things on Facebook that have done very poorly, and we've had other things that have worked very well, and it's just about finding where the fertile ground is. And so if you say, well, everything's on Facebook, well, that just depends on who your client or patient or ideal customer is, because maybe they're there, maybe they're not. But there's also people, I know, like, for us, we always encourage other practices to send out a printed newsletter, because I don't know about you, but I hate reading digital newsletters. It's painful. It's like,
if I want to read something via email, I often print it out.
Right, exactly.
Especially if it's any length at all. If it's a quick one, yeah, but if it's going to take more than a minute or two for me to read, I print it out, and it goes with all my other stack of analog stuff, all my newsletters and magazines.
Well, and it's like I remember when like email newsletters first came out, they'd always have a share this or forward button. And as easy as it is, nobody does that. And at best, I think the best email campaign we've ever had, we had somewhere between 40 and 50% open rate. It was a very small list of just other practice owners.
Yeah.
But, anything that we go, 1,000 or more, it's like, if we're doing really well, 20%. So,
Yep.
When people are saying, well, I emailed that to her, I sent that to him, I'm like, okay, so there's a 1 in 5 chance at best that person got it, opened it, and then that doesn't even mean they're going to do anything with it. They might just open it, and delete it, or just, archive it. So I think I was listening to something recently, and I can't remember what it was, but it was interesting. They were talking about, if email was invented today, like, millennials wouldn't even use it. They'd be like, this seems like a hassle, forget it,
Yes, you're exactly right.
But we use we have a service where we can text our patients their balance owed on their account, and that's actually pretty good. The open rate's high, but if we test it on email, it's like garbage open rate, But sending them a statement in the mail can also be good too, depending on who it is. Some people like to have that tangible thing. So I think it's it's just how you're going to handle it. But I also think, like, if I were in college and all my professors were emailing me textbooks right now to read, it'd be like, textbooks are painful enough to read, let alone on a screen where you can't highlight it or dog ear a page or anything like that.
Well, yeah, let's
Um,
use I'll use another example that kind of ties in what you're saying. When was the last time you got a coupon via email, printed it off, and stuck it on the refrigerator with a magnet?
right,
Well,
right,
that happens all the time with physical textual direct mail. So, think about Valpak, right? Everyone goes through Valpak. Now, we have a lot of people have stainless steel, right? The first thing I learned when we got a stainless steel refrigerator is nothing goes up there anymore. So what did we
yeah,
do? Now we've got a cork board now we got a cork board next to the fridge that has all, when we leave the kids at home alone, okay, here's grandma's phone number, here's our cell phone number just in case, right? And here's the menu for the pizza place. Well, it gets tacked up right there now. So people are still doing it. It's just the location has moved. But you never do that with email, right? So if you send an e-newsletter, no one's going to print that out and do it unless you're weird like me and you who print it out and then put it in a pile and hopefully get to, right? But now, say you send a newsletter and it has a certificate in there for, I don't know, some discount on teeth whitening or whatever you have going on, right, at any given time, right? Now that gets pulled out of the newsletter. The newsletter gets read. The newsletter probably gets thrown away eventually, but then that coupon goes up on the wall. Well, now imagine replicating that with direct mail for a new mover or a lost patient campaign or your monthly newsletter like we discussed there. So it gives you another media to reach your patient or prospect that just doesn't get that textual feel to it. And as digital as we're going, there are still people who say they prefer digital are usually lying, and the people who like the analog side of things still like it, right? So you've got to kind of meet people where they are.
well, and it makes me think of, back to what you were saying, even if direct mail were dying, you know, which I'm sure it won't because, we gotta have jobs and, you got millions of people working for the Postal Service. You got to keep that going. But, and I mean, even just packages and so much is being shipped
Oh, of
online too that,
course.
but even if it were, I mean, to me, I'm thinking if I'm going to market my dental practice, it's like, there's so much of the, quote, Me Too marketing where, some guy calls selling me, ads on XYZ website or something, and it's all templated and it's the same as the other 10 dental customers he has. And so at best, the results are going to be mediocre. Whereas if you go, well, hey, if direct mail is dying and no other dental offices around me are sending out postcards or lumpy mail, or 3D mailers, that seems like a great place to go. Kind of like like when the, chiropractors would advertise in the attorney section or vice versa, so that if
Yeah.
somebody had a car accident, and they're flipping through to see, well, who's the chiropractor I should go see, they also might find an attorney who specializes in car accident and back problems. And, it's that out of category advertising. You can almost find that loophole with direct mail. But Travis has some cool stuff. You know, because I wanted to see what your thought was on ways to increase the ROI with direct mail. And I've heard some people say a lot of times they'll test things digitally, and then the things that work well they'll roll it out into direct mail because obviously mailing something out has a higher cost to it, at least
Mm-hmm.
initially. But we had Travis. Uh, his company helped us with something pretty cool. We've done it actually a few times, but there were these trash cans, and they're self mailers. So if you're listening to this and you don't know what a self mailer is, that means you can actually mail it. The piece or the item or the toy, the object is actually what you mail. And so this was a
Mm-hmm.
trash can, and we had a crumpled up letter in it, and it was saying, hey, don't throw away your benefits before the year's over. So we sent it out to people who had lots of work that needed to be done, but they still had dental insurance benefits to use. And the trash can actually was mailed to their house. And I actually had a friend who's a patient. He saw that and he's like, I just saw that and I knew that was a Pinecrest thing. And I laughed because I said, yeah, but it got you in here, didn't it? So
Yep.
so
Yeah.
so it worked. But we had like a 16-to-1 return. So even though, it costs a few bucks to send that out, you can imagine, 16-to-1, if people could get that return in the stock market, they'd be dropping money in there all day long.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. It's just a matter of how many times can we spend a dollar at that point, right? Eventually,
right.
you run out of. The only downside to that is eventually you run out of your patients to mail, right? You run out of the
Yeah, right,
you run out of
right.
the appointment no sale type people or the things like that. So yeah, that's the only downside. Now the other upside is you can use direct mail to go get more patients and then rinse and repeat again, right? So
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, you're always gonna have like, I remember I had a marketing assistant years ago who was in college, and she was kind of like, one day she told me, she's like, at some point your practice is just gonna be like a big practice. You're not gonna need new patients because you're just gonna have lots of patients. And I was kind of like blown away, thinking, you're the marketing major here, and you know, I mean, every year, patients pass away, people move, people change jobs,
hmm
maybe they change insurance. And so, the American Dental Association says, average practice may be somewhere around 15%, 10 to 15% your attrition rate. That's pretty darn high because that means in 10 years, the whole thing's turned over.
yep.
And so you can't, I still think retaining patients is the better game, but you can't take your eye off of like you said, well, once you run out of patients to reach out to, go and market and get some new ones and find those that you want to do. But what do you guys see working well right now as far as, if someone listening is like, hey, I want to mail something out to my patients or maybe to a cold list of potential patients, what are some things they should look for to say, hey, here's a good place to spend your money, and maybe here's somewhere you want to be more cautious with?
Yeah, you bet. So we've talked about let's talk about current patient list type stuff. We talked about a couple of them right away, but your people on insurance who haven't used all of their benefits for that year yet, so that's a very easy offer to make. Paraphrasing here, of course. Hey, dummy, you spent all this money on insurance, and if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And so I know we've sent the trash cans for you in the past. I think we've done the little bank bags for you. I think we've done the shredded money, things like that. So, if you've got that list of patients that are on insurance and you're tracking what their usage is, and you can know, hey, they get 2 visits a year. We've only seen them once. We haven't seen them at all, right? Now you can make that insurance argument in the same vein as a lost patient campaign, right? So somebody comes in month 6, they haven't kept their appointment, they didn't reschedule, whatever it may be. Month 7, they're now lost, right? So now we can send them a boomerang. Hey, we want you back. We can send them a little worry doll. We're worried about you. Kind of in the same vein. It's just a different quote unquote argument for the offer, right? One is hey, use your insurance before you lose it. Once it's gone, it's gone. The other offer is you haven't, to be healthy, you got to come in every 6 months. And here we are, month 7. We haven't seen you yet, Tyler. So give us a call, right? So those are just two different ways to do it within there, especially if you're doing kind of some higher end dentistry as well. Um, there's appointment no sale stuff. So people that come in and get a big quote of work done, relatively speaking, for any office. So if you're doing some of that higher end, high transaction size, 4 or 5 figures even possibly, now you have a percentage of those people who are going to come in. You're going to give them the scope of findings, and they're not going to retain you. They're not going to hire you to do it. They're not going to schedule an appointment. So now what do? Well, you always have, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you're always going to have a little bank of these people over here. I've got a dentist, I'm sure Len Anglis out there in Indiana. He does very high end stuff for the most part, right? His business is run on those, $15 and $20 and $25,000 on up jobs, and so he's got a decent amount of people every quarter that don't take him up on it. Well, now if you're going to be sending, you know, direct mail pieces that maybe cost $3 or $4 a piece, but you get just one or two of those patients to finally pull the trigger, you're way ahead in terms of your ROI, as you mentioned with the trash can. Briefly, when it comes to getting new patients, Those new mover mailers we talked about work exceedingly well. Again, we know through statistics that around 60% of all people that move, almost regardless of length of move, change their dentist. There are some things that we can do. We actually can know if they move from outside the area. So if you are a little worried about, hey, I want to exclude the people that are maybe moving across town, there are ways to do that, and we can help you do that. So you can get people moving into your area from out of the area. There's things like that. As kids reach school age, you can start mailing. We can get lists of those people. Let's say you do some reconstructive stuff or you do some cosmetic surgery. You can target affluent women. On milestone birthdays, right? So their 50th birthday, their 40th birthday, things like that, when their antenna are up for that. So when it comes to direct mail, this is how you got to kind of think about it. You got to think about who is the audience that I want to attract, and then what mailing lists are available that would attract those kinds of people. So if we want to attract families, we can get a list of moms in our area. If we want affluent empty nesters for cosmetic or reconstructive surgery, we can get that list. So that's kind of how you got to think about it. Who do I want? And then you hire a guy like me who can help you to go out and find those lists for you and say, okay, that's the avatar you want. Here's what we can do to match those two things up.
Well, I mean, it sounds like from what you're saying too, I think the argument isn't so much direct mail versus electronic, but how can we do both, right? So we can send this piece of mail out and then also shoot an email out that says, hey, I sent you this letter. I hadn't heard from you. I just wanted to make sure it arrived. And I mean, it can be that simple. And sometimes simple is better because it feels more authentic too. I mean, I know somebody listens is probably thinking, one, I don't want to spend money on mailing all this stuff out. Sounds expensive, but my answer to that is, well, it costs a lot less than it did the first time you got them in the office, and that didn't work out as well. So this is actually a less expensive way to follow people. And then the other thing I would say, is just make it work succinctly with your email and your text. I mean, we're doing like text, call, email, letter, and some direct mail packages as well, because it appeals to everybody differently. And recently I actually, one of my vehicles was a year out of date on the registration, and what happened was last year our DMV decided they weren't going to send out reminder cards anymore. They were going to only send it through email, but you could opt in for a card, which I thought I did, and maybe I did, maybe I didn't. So on two of the vehicles, we were fine because those came through the mail, but I totally forgot about the third one. I don't drive it as often. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the license plate, and it says June of 2020 expires, and here I'm in May 21st, and I'm thinking something's off here. And I realize it's because they probably emailed to me, but I have no idea if that email came through or what email address it went to. And I was thinking, they tried to save 80 cents. I mean, it couldn't have cost them very much to auto-generate this postcard. And, it's not like it's a personalized card. Shoot it out to me. Cost them probably $150 to $200 of lost revenue because they didn't send it. They didn't send anything. So I'm like, that's a pretty good. That's like a 200 plus ROI for that card. They sent it out, and it was interesting because I had to go down to the DMV to register because it was expired, and she told me, yeah, we're actually sending out the cards too. So
yep.
So it's like for me, it's like they should be doing both, send a postcard and send the email, so that people who like email more, they'll open the email. But people like me who I need to stick it on my fridge or in my folder for somebody to register it for me. I like having that tangible thing, and I think you probably know more about this than me, but something I read was talking about how when people interact with direct mail, there's parts of the brain that light up in a scan that don't light up in email or text, because it's you're actually kind of more engaging with the piece.
Yeah. So if they have to hold it and feel it as opposed to just seeing it, you're using another sense. You're using another sensory, right? You're using other things to involve them, even though it's simple as holding something in their hands. My wife's a teacher, and you're always told I won't get the number right, but there's 5 different ways kids learn, right? And so when you're doing a math lesson, you have to try to engage all 5 of them. And as a teacher, after a while, you know which ones work for which groups and which ones don't work for which groups. Problem is, as a business owner, unless you're really, 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 really tracking your engagement, you don't know who's doing what, right? And so now, again, it comes back to, well, you've got to meet them where they want to be seen, where they want to be met. And so, you can't give up on this thing over here because there's shinier objects over here and they may or may not work as well, right? So unless you're testing every aspect of everything that you're sending out the door, you've got to be cognizant of this. I'm not saying just go spend money willy-nilly. I know I'm not saying that, but my encouragement to you is, if you're not using any direct mail at all, find a campaign in which you would normally just use email or text messages or whatever. Your lost patient campaign, or have any of the things that we talked about, and pick a direct mail letter, send one to that group one time, and see if it increases the response. Because the great thing about direct mail is it's one of those things that really, it's the tide that lifts all the ships, right? So when you send a direct mail piece out, and this is especially true for, your own patient in-house list, your own patient list. When you send out that direct mail piece and you send them a boomerang that says, "We want you back. We haven't been in here in 7 months." And then you send an email with the subject line that says, "Where have you been? Did you get my boomerang?" Right? And then you send a text message that says, "Ahoy, matey, we're missing you," right? Something along those lines. Now all those things add up to where 1 + 1 + 1 is not equaling 2. It's equaling, or not equaling 3. It's equaling something more than 3, because they all work together. And so that's how you can really see, a big increase in your response to your marketing when you start using all of those things, because they really do prop each other up.
Well, yeah, and anytime I get something that's kind of lumpy or an interesting object, I'm always like, most of my mail just like goes into the little folder. It's like, once a week I pull all that out and go through it. But if something feels kind of lumpy or interesting, I'm like, I'm curious to know what's in here. And if they've done a good job picking the right list, sometimes I become a client. But I think, again, someone listening to this, if you've never mailed out to your dental practice, don't let this discourage you, because you probably have a ton of hidden opportunity. And, you can start out by mailing to 100 people or 50 people or 20 people or 200 people. And Travis has a whole bunch of resources. He even has pre-written letters that come with a lot of his products, where you can just take that letter, edit it for your practice. They'll hook you up. They'll even mail it out for you if you want, which we've done a lot. And, or you can do it yourself too. But it's just nice to have someone who has all these resources at their fingertips, and they know it works. So just kind of wrapping up here, Travis, if you have any final words, and then, if someone wants to get in touch with you, I know you have a book, or wants to learn more about your services and what you can do to help practice owners.
You bet. The first place they should go to get some of those templates you'd mentioned. So it's our free book. It's called The Definitive Guide Using 3D Mail in Your Marketing Campaigns: How to Explode Your Advertising Results and Skyrocket Your Profits Using 3D Mail. So you will go to 3dmailresults.com/book. So I'll spell that for you. It's the number 3, the letter D, mailresults.com/book. 3dmailresults.com/book. It's completely free. All you got to do is give me a good address to send it to, because I'm a direct mail guy. So I'm actually going to send you some direct mail. So that's all I need. It's completely free. It's not a free and then you got to pay $3 or $5 or $10 for shipping. It's completely free. So go ahead and do that. 3dmailresults.com/book. You'll get the templates we talked about. It dives into some of the different campaigns some of our clients use. We have some case studies in there. And then the biggest thing to wrap up, I would just say, test it. Test something. Find some of the ways that we discussed. I think we So pick one of those 7. The easiest and quickest is always going to be lying inside of your own patient list. So find a segment of that list, whether it be your insurance people coming up. I know we're probably a little early for that in June. We typically send those out in, say, October-ish is when you send them out as well, Tyler. So find that list. Find your appointment no sale is what we call them. So they did their scope of work consultation, but actually didn't schedule the appointment. Your lost patients. That's going to be the quickest and easiest way to do it. But test something. Like I said, we gave you 6 or 7 different ones, and I think you'll be surprised. The rec mail is still alive and well, and as they say, the demise is probably exaggerated.
Very cool. Well, hey, Travis, thanks so much. You're a wealth of information. I think people, listeners, can really get some good gems out of this to go out and grow their practices and build their relationship with their patients. And that's why we, do these calls and podcasts and everything, is we want to help practice owners really build the value that they're giving to their patients. And I think, instead of just always chasing new patients, you got to remember the people you already have inside of your practice and how to take care of them. So go check out 3dmailresults.com /book. Did I get that right?
You got it.
And thanks again, Travis. We'll do it again.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We'll chat soon.